Okay, so we are Clear Creek Solutions, and we're going to go over a basic overview of WWHM 2012 and go through a modeling scenario here. So let's just get started with it. Clear Creek Solutions, just a little background, we were founded in 2005 by Joe Brasher and Doug Bayerlein, and Doug Bayerlein does most of our educational material. So to admit one more person in. Let's see. Must be a way. Admit all. Okay, here we go. So as I was saying, Doug Bayerlein does most of our educational material. We do software development, hydrology, modeling, and stormwater modeling. We've been doing this. Our company's been doing this for quite a while, and there's over 60 plus years of experience between the senior founding members. And then we developed WWHM 2012, or the Western Washington Hydrology Model, for the counties of Western Washington, as well as many numerous software packages for jurisdictions along the West Coast and across the entire country. So that's just a quick background there. So what is WWHM 2012? Well, it's a continuous simulation software package that models the entire hydrologic cycle. So something people might be more familiar with is single event modeling. And what single event modeling is it's almost like a stormwater event completely in a vacuum. So imagine if you just had a land use area where there was no water, no infiltration. It was basically a desert. Some rainfall rained on it, and then a certain runoff comes from that. So we're all familiar with like Q equals CIA, right? Where there's a runoff coefficient and intensity, and then a certain acreage. Well, continuous simulation actually is going to model that entire hydrologic cycle. And how it does that is, and specifically in WWHM, is through 15-minute time steps. So HSPF is actually the developmental engine for WWHM 2012. That's what it is based off of. And using continuous simulation methods in WWHM 2012, we can more accurately model stormwater facilities and perform water quality analysis, because over the 60 plus years of rainfall data, that's why you download the map files and all the rainfall data, is because we're using historical events to gauge what is going to happen in the future when certain stormwater events occur. Because as we know, when a stormwater event occurs, it doesn't happen in completely dry and with the past not having an impact on it. Stormwater events that have come before and have impacted that land use are going to have an impact on how quickly the soil gets infiltrated and what kind of runoff it's produced. So in a continuous simulation software like WWHM 2012, we're relying on years of rainfall data and those 15-minute time steps to gauge what is going to happen and get the flow ranges from that. So especially in Western Washington, what we want to know about is Department of Ecology's minimum requirements. And Department of Ecology actually has a great free video. I think it's 3 or 4 hours covering all 9 minimum requirements. So that is a really useful resource to look at. Just admitting one more person here. Okay, excellent. So, like I said, Department of Ecology has a video on all 9 of those minimum requirements. What we're more focused on in stormwater, specifically with WWHM 2012, is minimum requirements 6, 7, and 8. Okay, hopefully that's the last person. We'll see. So we're looking at minimum requirements 6, 7, and 8, runoff treatment, flow control, and wetlands protection. I'll go over how WWHM 2012 can help you with those. So as I said, it's not actually linked here, but if you look at Washington State Department of Ecology minimum requirements, there's a whole course on that, really in-depth, really well done. So here's all 9 minimum requirements. Like I said, we're focusing on 6, 7, and 8. Runoff treatment, flow control, and wetlands protection in WWHM 2012. So how can WWHM 2012 help you meet those minimum requirements? I'm going to get into that here. So the first one we're going to look at is minimum requirement number 6, which is runoff treatment. It's not the one we're going to do the modeling scenario on, but minimum requirement number 6. What we're trying to do in WWHM 2012 a lot of the time is meet 91% filtered for that certain runoff treatment, and we often use a bioretention facility to do this. You want to meet that 91% filter. We have other elements in the software that can also meet that 91% filter to keep the water clean and keep the water quality upkeep. But what most people are focused on is minimum requirement number 7, which is flow control. And this is really the important one because it's going to help prevent those erosive flows. So the Washington State Department of Ecology has determined that half of the 2-year to the 50-year flow is the erosive flow range. And what they don't want to happen is that flow range being exceeded in your developed scenario. So if you have a pre-developed scenario where it's just straight forest, it rains on that, stormwater events occur on that forest, and then there's runoff that's generated. There's a certain amount of runoff that occurs. There's a certain amount of erosion that occurs, but it's natural erosion. It's okay for our streams. But if we replace 4 of those acres with roads now we're getting more flows, we're getting more erosive flows, and more of that sediment is now collecting in our streams and causing issues, causing problems. So the Department of Ecology wants us to model these land use areas correctly and model it so that we don't create more of these erosive flows and reduces the pollution. So that's kind of the purpose of minimum requirement number 7. And then minimum requirement number 8 is a wetlands protection, where it's going to try to prevent the damage to these wetland habitats. And for Western Washington generally, we're trying to keep the wetland input volumes within plus or minus 15% of the initial wetland condition. And I'll show you a graph here real quick that'll kind of help you visualize that. Let's see, I just want to make sure. Got everything set up. Okay, everyone is now in. Excellent. Okay, so this is the flow control standard for minimum requirement number 7. And you can see on the left here, the blue graph, and if you're familiar with WWHM 2012, you've probably seen this many times before, but the blue line is representing your pre-developed flow. Your red line is representing that mitigated flow. And so you can see here that the red line is going past that blue line for many of the flows here, and the facility is failing. So the program or WWHM 2012 is designed to show where your facility is failing or where your developed scenario is failing and what kind of stormwater mitigation methods you can maybe use to help that facility pass minimum requirement number 7. So if you look at the graph on the y-axis, we have the flow in cubic feet per second and the percent time exceeding. Essentially, what percent time exceeding is it's running all these 15-minute time steps and determining how often or what percent of the time are these flow events being exceeded by your new facility and your pre-developed facility. It can be a bit of a complicated concept, and we go more in depth in it in our in-depth training. But those flow values are seen on the y-axis, and the percent time exceeding is seen on the x-axis. So the graph on the left would show you that we don't have any mitigation methods installed because the facility is failing. And then if you look at the graph on the right, that red line is below that blue line. So the red line is that mitigated flow. That blue line, oh, we got one person here. Okay. There we go. Okay. So that red line is below that blue line, showing that we are meeting minimum requirement number 7, and it does pass for all those various flow ranges. Then this is just a quick outline of water quality analysis here. This would be a modeled bioretention facility, which shows a 91% filtered, and there are size water quality automated features in WWHM 2012s that will model your facility for you and make sure that you do meet that percent filtered amount. And then for minimum requirement number 8, for wetlands, this is a graph showing different wetland input volumes for your pre-developed, and then now your developed scenario for your wetland input volume, showing that it is within that plus or minus 15%. Maybe for different jurisdictions it could be different, but I'm familiar with plus or minus 15% for wetland input volumes to allow that to pass. It's really going to depend on your jurisdiction as well, though.